Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw said that social media platforms must ensure a fair revenue distribution for those creating content from established news organizations to independent creators in remote regions. He was speaking at the Digital News Publishers Association conclave, where the minister said, and I quote, that social media platforms must also share revenue in a fair way with the people who are creating this content, whether it's news persons, conventional media, creators sitting in far-flung areas, influencers, professors, or researchers who are disseminating their work using these platforms. Everywhere, the principle now has to be set right, is what he said. He called for equitable monetization models across social media platforms. The minister said he would request all the platforms to rethink their revenue sharing policies, and if this was not done voluntarily, then there would be a legal way to get it done.
The platforms must also share revenue in a fair way with the people who are creating the content, whether it is news persons, the conventional media, the creators sitting in far-flung areas, large influencers, small influencers, the professors and researchers who are disseminating their work using the platforms. Everywhere, the principle now has to be set right, and there has to be a fair share of revenue with the people who are creating the content.
Kanchan Gupta, Senior Advisor with the IMB Ministry, is now with us. Thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Now, we want to put this in perspective, sir, what Ashwini Vaishnaw said and what the significance of what this would be. Now, digital platforms will have to share revenue. That's really the red line that has been drawn by Mr. Vaishnaw. He's hinted at legal action as well. Do you think that this is going to be the first step to sort of ensure that media giants, tech giants, all of these digital platforms eventually fall in line?
Well, this would be in alignment with similar laws and rules which have now kicked in various countries. They have a rule in Canada, they have similar rules in some European countries, in Australia, and it's only fair that we should have a similar rule over here. If digital platforms are monetizing content, if they are making money out of it, it's only fair that a fair share of that money should go to the creator of the content or the person to whom the intellectual property right belongs.
But what about compliance? I mean, the minister there also said that the idea is that these social media platforms, these digital platforms do it voluntarily. But if they don't, then there will be a legal way that will be looked into. Now, in the past, we've seen that compliance is not as swift as we'd like it to be, especially in the case of Twitter, which is now X. There have been times where there have been legal hurdles. Their representatives have spoken to the parliamentary panel as well. And many say that very little has come out of that because India's law isn't robust enough.
No, I'm sorry. The IT rules have since been changed. For instance, platforms now get only 3 days to take action on any government order which is issued. They cannot sit on it. There is a compliance factor which has come into play. And let me again point out over here, the deadline for compliance, for instance, in the UK is 48 hours. So for the platforms to complain that they are being pushed into a corner, it's not fair. They just think that in India they can get away with impunity, whereas in the White West countries or in Australia, they have to be accountable for their actions, whether it is the content which they host, whether it is to do with revenue sharing, whether it is about being in compliance with local laws. For instance, in Australia, if you are 16 or below, you cannot have a social media account. In Britain, now they are cracking down on social media accounts for underage individuals. So when similar action is taken over here, sadly, the platforms, and then we have so-called internet freedom activists who are funded, we know by whom, who kick in and they start screaming that freedoms are being short-circuited. Now, that is not true. I mean, when you're trying to protect a child from whatever happens on the internet, you're actually protecting the child's freedom. You're not curbing the child's freedom. If you are asking the platform to be in compliance, it is because there are specific cultural, social, political, aspects to the country where the platforms are operating.
Right.
I'll just give you one example. I mean, unrestricted free speech in India is not quite the same concept. I mean, it doesn't happen the same way. For instance, as it happens in America or in Europe. You can't have someone burning down a holy book in India and say that it is free speech. Probably in those countries you can get away with it. So we are not curbing freedom. We are just trying to bring the platforms in alignment with local laws, with sovereign laws, sovereign rules, and that's about it.
But how would that compliance actually work? I mean, like you said, there have been allegations that are made from certain quarters, and those motives can be questioned. But there are times when questions are being raised about how this enforcement can really be uniform and not selective.
No, there is nothing selective of the about the enforcement. Enforcement of rules and laws are always uniform, and but we are a democracy. People go to court, they challenge the rules, they challenge the laws. We wait it out. The courts finally approve of the rules and laws. If there are any minor changes to be made, those are made, and we move on. I mean,
Sure.
for instance, this whole thing about fact checking. There was a huge hullabaloo about it that we are going to curb freedom of press over here. No, it is about government information. You cannot just put out wrong information about the government and claim that it is your right to do so. It will be fact checked, and we will tell the world that what you are putting out is wrong. And these are the reasons why it is wrong. The reasons are also provided in the public domain. Now, similarly, coming back to where we began, when big tech or big tech platforms are monetizing content, like for instance, if you are hosting a video on a platform and you have a certain brand equity, both the brand equity of your channel where you work and your own personal brand equity as a popular anchor. Now, surely there you have a right to a share of the revenue that the platform earns by running your video. Now, that is all we are saying is that be fair to this person, give her her share of revenue, fair share of revenue, and we'll let you do it voluntarily. Now, if you are not willing to do it voluntarily, if you think that you can get away without being in compliance with what we are telling you, we'll bring in a rule, we'll bring in a law, and we will ensure that you are in compliance.
And speaking of bringing in laws, you also spoke about it, about protecting children. That's something that Ashwini Vaishnaw, the Union Minister, also spoke about. There are several states that are also mulling, restrictions on social media apps for kids under 16. But how would that framework work? Do you think it will be a little more effective as a legal framework if it were to be a pan-India central law, so to say, rather than states bringing in their own framework?
No, see, states cannot. I don't think states bringing in their own little laws is going to work, frankly. And I don't think it's quite in the domain of the states to do so. But I think the central government already, the IT rules that have been proposed, they bring in this idea that that an underage person or a non-adult should not have of a social media account, and there is an age cutoff over there. Again, this is something which we are not unique about it. We are not doing it for the first time. Australia has done it. There are
Yes.
other countries which have done it. In UK now, the social media accounts of teenagers and those who are non-adults, they are being very closely monitored, and even police action is being initiated. So we have to be mindful about protecting the children's rights. And if the protecting the children's rights means protecting them from all the I mean, I don't need to elaborate on it, all that goes on the internet
Sure.
in the name of freedom. Again, I mean, that freedom may be something which is socially, culturally, politically acceptable in the white west, but it may not be politically, socially, culturally acceptable in our country. And every country has its own sovereign rights to decide what suits its own cultural milieu, its social milieu, and its political processes. So it cannot be a one size fits all. I mean,
Yes.
the boardroom of these platforms, they cannot decide or they cannot overrule the sovereign laws and sovereign rules of individual countries. The sooner they get used to this idea, I think the better it would be for them.
And that's the message that the Union Minister has also sent out today. We'll have to leave it there. But Kanchan Gupta, thank you so much for speaking with us here and sharing your perspective.